Okay, it is now 5:01 p.m. Pursuant to Chapter 551, Title 5, Section 551.041 of the Texas Government Code, the Texas Open Meetings Act, notice was given that the City Commission of the City of Brownsville would conduct a regular meeting on Tuesday, August 17th, 2021 at 5 p.m. via the WebEx teleconference meeting link provided at the City of Brownsville Agenda Center. This notice and meeting agenda were posted online at City of Brownsville Agenda Center. The members of the public wishing to participate in the meeting hosted through WebEx could join at the phone numbers provided on the agenda. Members of the public who submitted a public comment form will be permitted to offer public comments as provided by the agenda and as permitted by the presiding officer during the meeting. A recording of the meeting will be made and will be available to the public in accordance with the Open Meetings Act. It is now 5:02 p.m. Mayor, you may call the meeting to order.
Thank you, Lori. I will now call the meeting to order. Welcome everybody that's here and everybody that's watching.
Okay, and I see Commissioner Tetro has now joined us. Our next item is invocation.
Pastor Brad, I see you here. Go ahead, sir.
Yes. Let's pray. Father God, we thank you for the many blessings we have living in the United States of America, and especially right here in Brownsville. And Lord God, your word says that in Proverbs 9:10, the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom, and the knowledge of the Holy One is understanding. So Lord, we pray that for all of our leaders from Washington to Austin to right here in Brownsville. And we especially pray that for our military right now, that you would cause them to look to you for understanding, cause them to acknowledge you and receive the wisdom that you have for them. Lord, we ask you to have your way in Afghanistan, and we ask you to cause them to cry out to you and receive your salvation spiritually, emotionally, and physically, Lord God, that we no longer deny God, but we acknowledge you. Lord, we ask you to have your way in this meeting tonight. Lead and guide our mayor, each of our commissioners, and everybody presenting anything for the very best for the city of Brownsville. And we ask all of these things in the name of your precious Son, Jesus Christ. Amen. And now we're going to have a short moment of silence where we can all add our prayers to what has been spoken. Amen.
Thank you so much, Pastor. I know you need to leave, so I appreciate your time.
Thank you very much.
Our next item is public comment period. We received one public comment form from Mr. Moises Molina. Mr. Molina, are you present?
Hello, good afternoon. I am present.
Welcome, Mr. Molina. You'll have 3 minutes, sir.
Thank you. Do those minutes start now?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, great. So there is one item on the agenda that will be discussed today, and it's one of the properties that was brought up to the commission for approval of an existing residential zoning to a commercial zoning. We understand this was something that was already being recommended by the planning and zoning to you guys, and you guys were going to vote on it. But our particular property got affected on that vote because there was a clearing on the property which included some trees. The trees were removed by the owners contracting someone to clear the land. And this happened when you guys had the meeting before that, and it was brought up to the attention of the commission. Therefore, it was not approved to become commercial as a result of that. So we are here today with a submitted proposal plan to mitigate for such damage in more than more than twice as much of what was damaged, just to show our good faith that it was done with no malice. It was just the owner did not know the process about removing the trees. and he's willing to put them back. I know there were some recommendations from the commission, but we spoke with the forester, and he also gave his opinion on what would be best in order to preserve both sites, what is native to Brownsville, also to include the request of the commission, and we balance both out. And I believe we need to meet 87 inches of damaged calipers. We are proposing over 200. So that's what we have submitted to you guys, as well to the planning and zoning, and the director, Rick. He's got a copy, or whoever's present in this meeting from that department, they have a printed copy or a PDF copy of what that plan looks like, identifying the kind of trees, the locations, and the reasons why these were chosen and the purpose of each one of those. The owners are more than willing to comply. On top of those, we will be working, once we're ready to develop the property entirely and go through the permit process, we will be adding to that vegetation for mitigation what is required on the landscaping plan. That is completely aside from these trees. So we will be adding more vegetation once we get to the building permits.
That's the time limit, Mayor?
Mr. Molina, thank you so much, sir.
You're welcome. Thank you, guys.
Yep.
Our next item is work session. Item 1, Juneteenth holiday presentation.
Good afternoon, Honorable Mayor and Commissioners. My name is Perla Cepeda, ODNHR Director for the City of Brownsville. The intention of this workshop is to present the requested data from the last Commissioner meeting, which tabled the holiday schedule for city employees. As you may know, the request was made about Juneteenth, not included in the regular holiday schedule. So on June 19, it's a federal day, and on June 18, 2021, the President Joe Biden signed a bill establishing Juneteenth, the date marking the end of slavery in Texas in the United States, as a federal holiday. This chart represents the data from other cities in Texas. The total city responses to the survey was 110. So the 35% of the cities did not respond. The survey, the 35% considering to observe on fiscal year 22. 22% were not currently observing. For fiscal year 22, 6% it's currently observed, the Juneteenth holiday, and 2% they may exchange another holiday for Juneteenth. And we also asked about the dates that they observe as a holidays, and the average is at 11.52, it's around 12 days. Next slide. So this slide is the holidays compared with other Valley cities and including Brownsville PUB. So this is the city that at the time they are not observing Juneteenth. However, city of McAllen and Edinburgh, they are having discussions for possible implementation for fiscal year 22. Only Brownsville PUB is currently observing the Juneteenth as a holiday. So this is the current schedule that was presented to Commissioner for approval last meeting. We have, as a city of Brownsville, observed 12 days: Veterans Day, Thanksgiving, day after Thanksgiving, Christmas Day, New Year's Day, Martin Luther King Jr. Day, President's Day, Cesar Chavez Day, Good Friday, Memorial Day, Independence Day, and Labor Day. Next slide. So this table includes what the city pay on an ordinary day as a regular time for non-civil employees for fire and department, and police department, and how much we actually pay during a holiday. And we take July the 4th to represent an estimate. For PD and fire department, for PD, the pay includes a holiday hours 1.5 rate as a per union agreement. The same for fire department, only if they work during the holiday. Next slide. So at this time, no action is required. This is a workshop just to present for your consideration. I don't know if you have any question for me.
Does any of the commission have any questions on this? I think Commissioner Galansky may have brought this up last.
Yes, thank you. And thank you, Perla, for preparing that presentation. My question, since the police and the firemen have their contracts negotiated separately, would that require separate negotiations based on the anecdotes that you put at the bottom, right at the end, or no?
Yes, that is correct. They have the next negotiation. For example, PD, it's on October 22, and fire department on October 22 as well. So this,
So we have to take
this will-
separate action
yes.
for them? Okay. Okay.
I'm sorry,
Thank
that's
you.
not my interpretation there. My interpretation would be that if it's a holiday, then as per their contract, which already specifies how holidays are handled, it would automatically fall under that. I don't interpret this to mean that separate negotiations would need to be held. Am I missing something here?
Yes, for now, it's not part of the collective bargaining, that the Juneteenth holiday. So we are estimating in case that it's part of the next agreement, then we consider the amount. So it's part of the slide, previous slide.
But does the CBA include federally recognized holidays? Or does
No,
it specifically state the
no, in it-
days?
Not for Juneteenth right now. They have a.
That's not my
different-
question. My question is, does the contract state that it's observing federal holidays, or does it state the holidays themselves?
Yes, it's part. Yes, it's part of the holidays.
I'm sorry. It
Yes,
does state holidays?
Yes, good evening, Mayor, Commissioners. Yes, the holidays have to be part of the bargaining process, so they're specified. They don't automatically apply.
Okay, so then they're itemized. You list them out.
Yes, correct.
Okay,
Which is why they require a policy approval from the governing body.
okay. So it's not automatic. If it's a federally recognized holiday, it's not automatic.
No,
Okay, just because I think that's the way Commissioner De Los Santos is interpreting it, and I understood that.
that's not the way the bargaining process works. Everything has to go to the bargaining table when it applies to them.
No, and I think my question is not so much as it's a federal holiday, but if we designate this a city holiday, does that automatically extend to them, or does that require separate negotiation?
Yes, it still requires separate negotiation.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
I don't believe this is an action item, so does anybody else have any questions? Okay, thank you, Perla.
Thank you.
Our next item is consent agenda items 1 through 12.
We have a motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
I think I'd like to pull out number 1 because I have a correction for the minutes from the last meeting.
Okay, currently the motion is to approve them all, Commissioner. So unless the motion's amended, we're discussing.
I'll move to amend the motion to exclude item number 1.
Okay. Will you amend your motion?
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any additional discussion? Those in favor?
Aye.
All right, those opposed? All right, motion passes. Okay, item 1, Commissioner, what was the issue?
On the motion to approve the 24th amended emergency order, it was a motion to approve with a mandate that it be posted on the city website within 72 hours.
Okay. Will you, then, do you want to go ahead and make a motion to approve the minutes subject to that change?
I'll make a motion to approve, subject to the change just mentioned.
Very good. Do we have a second? Motion and a second. Any discussion? Those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes. Thank you.
Our next item is public hearings. Item 1, public hearing and action on first reading of ordinance number 2021-1689 of the City of Brownsville, Texas, to adopt the fiscal year 2022 annual budget, Financial Services Department.
Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. My name is Carlos Garza, Chief Financial Officer for the City of Brownsville. To my left is Ana Benavides, and we're here to start with the fiscal year 2022 budget hearing approval presentation. Let's move on. Okay, table of contents. Ms. Benavides is going to walk you through the Convention and Tourism Fund. She's going to talk about the hot update, the funding request, and I'll take it over with the fiscal year 2022 budget highlights and key dates. Next slide, please.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor and Commissioners. On the Convention and Tourism Fund, we're going to provide a brief update. We are proposing a balanced budget for fiscal year 2022 with hotel and motel taxes revenue of 1.5 million. And we are also proposing expenses of the same amount. Of these 1.5 million expenses, we have 723,000 of operating expenses for the department and 803,000 allocated to organizations that will be discussed on the next slide. On the estimated fund balance for the end of this current fiscal year, we're estimating 538,000. And which will be the same amount that we're estimating for the end of fiscal year 2022. This is approximately 129 days, which is well under the amount that is recommended of 60 days. This is the recommended fund balance amount. So we are estimating a little bit double of the recommended in days. On this slide, we're showing the requests received from organizations. The city released an application to the participating and interested organizations for fiscal year 2022. This is being led by the Communications and Marketing Department. The process started in May with the application going late and with follow-up meetings from May through July. The city received applications from 10 organizations for a total of 914,000, which is shown on the second column on the fiscal year 2022 request. The proposed allocation for the entities that have received funding previously is within the same levels that we currently have for fiscal year 2021. We have 3 new organizations which are listed, and that total a proposed allocation of around 50,000, which is the same amount that increased from the fiscal year 2021 allocation. The only change that we have on the organizations is that since the Custom of the Americas was absorbed by the Brownsville Historical Association, the proposed allocation for this organization combines the 2021 budget for the 2 organizations. Other than that, the allocations for all of these organizations are within the same 2021 levels. Are there any questions on these? We have the Communications and Marketing Department available for any questions on the application process or the proposed allocations for these organizations.
Yes, I have questions. To the Comms and Marketing Department, especially with these new organizations coming on board to take advantage of these monies, has it been communicated to them how strict the law is with regard to how these funds can be expended? and that this is state statute, not just city law that applies here.
Good afternoon, Honorable Mayor and Commission. I'm Felipe Romero Hill, Director of Communications and Marketing for the Communications and Marketing Department, and alongside me is Ms. Monica Tellum, who is the BCVB Tourism Manager. To answer your question, Commissioner, yes, we did have a robust engagement process following up with the new organizations, also the previous organizations as well, in terms of explaining the Texas two-step process in terms of properly using the funds correctly for our HOT funding.
And I know there was a great level of scrutiny applied last year, and we saw some organizations take quite a cut. And I know others that were at risk of having to repay monies that had not been spent in accordance. Has that same type of scrutiny been applied to expenditures for this last grant cycle when considering whether or not to award them for the upcoming fiscal year?
Yes, Commissioner, we continue to review the applications as received and in terms of looking at the quarterly reports and making the necessary notes mentioned to our finance and city management office.
Thank you.
Any more questions for? Oh,
I
sorry.
just have a comment, or actually a compliment. I have to say, because I've been here quite a few years, the degree of professionalism and scrutiny afforded these funds has done nothing but go up in the last couple of years. And I take my hat off to your staff, Felipe, for doing such a great job. It's a tough job, and thank you for doing it.
I appreciate that, Commissioner.
I have a question. Any reason why the Costumes of the Americas didn't apply for funding this year?
Yes, Commissioner. Actually, they were absorbed by the Brownsville Historical Association, so we allocated the proper funding to BHA.
Okay, thank you.
Do we have any other questions from the commission?
I do. The 150 that were asked for by Brownsville Historical Association, were they told that you all are proposing 88,000, or is this going to be needed?
We did inform them that the lower cost would be proposed to commission today. However, a formal announcement has not been sent to them.
Any other questions?
I think as a commission, it might be good for us also to have a workshop on this with the comms and marketing department, just to look at how some of these funds are spent today. When economic development is so important to us, and knowing that the need to increase sales tax revenues from tourism dollars is something that will allow us to, in the future, lower property taxes for our citizens, I think it warrants it. Just a suggestion for the future.
Understood, Commissioner. I think there is a committee, if I'm not mistaken, Mr. Romero and Ms. Tellum, is that correct? Is there a committee that kind of looks over this and decides the allocations, or how is it done? Because in the future, if we need a workshop, that might not be bad.
Yes, Mayor, we do have an advisory committee that we share information with in terms of the who's applied and in terms of reviewing the applications, we send the applications to our finance and city manager's office.
Okay, thank you. Any additional questions or concerns? Okay, can I have does that conclude your presentation, Mr. Garza?
No. Let's move on to the next slide, please.
Okay.
Okay, highlights of fiscal year 2022 budget. On July 6th, we had our first work session. And on that session, we did a recap of 2021. Basically, we talk about the repurposing of the city staff. And also it was the first property tax reduction in 10 years. We also did a fiscal year 2021 end of the year projection. We estimated a surplus balance in the general fund. A portion of this balance is part of the surplus funding that I will be talking about on the work session number 2. We also set up the guidelines and budget theme, restoring our service levels, our long-term maintenance and service focus. We also continue with the technology enhancements. On July 20th, we had our budget work session number 2, where we talk about our surplus funding, how we follow the guidelines of the utilization of the surplus funding policy statements to allocate $16.8 million. Between all the departments, we agreed that $14 million was to be used for deferred maintenance, like heavy equipment, facilities, fair streets, technology, etc. $2.8 million for one-time non-recurring, the bus shelters, historic preservation programs, games of Texas, etc. We also introduced the infrastructure maintenance fund. This fund is used for alleys, sidewalk repairs, parking lot marking or improvements, the ADA improvements, and city facilities maintenance. We also touched on the capital improvement plan and capital outlays. The criteria was very simple: fixed assets, new or existing, on infrastructure as well, and also align payback within the useful life of the asset. Next slide, please. On July 30th, we submitted our proposed fiscal year 2022 budget draft with City Secretary. On August the 3rd, we have our budget work session number 3. We set in the context and building the foundations. On modest growth, we introduced the Senate Bill number 2 impact and the tax base mix. We're still aiming to reduce dependency on enterprise funding. We continue the strategic automation plan. Our budget requests and non-recurring items. Personnel needs still is there, 75 FTEs, an estimated cost of $2.7 million. Non-personnel requests of $2.9 on supplies, maintenance, and services. The non-recurring total department request at $741,000. Our general fund revenue and expenses highlights. Our revenues at $111 million. 3 revenue sources make up 80% of the total revenue. Property taxes, $34 million or 31%. Sales taxes, $33 million or 30%. Operating transfer from other funds, $22.3 million or 20%. Our expenses at $111 million as well. It's mainly driven by personnel services, about $81 million, which represents around 73% of total expenses. Our fiscal year 2022 proposed budget is a balanced budget. A balanced budget of revenue at $111 million equals $111 million on expenses. And today we're here for the public hearing. We just went through the hotel, motel, occupancy, tax allocation, the fiscal year 2022 budget highlights that I just went through. Next slide, please. Our upcoming meeting on September 21st, we have proposed adjustment to capital improvement plan. Next. Some numbers here. Our fiscal year 2022 budget. The general fund is a balance with a tax rate of 0.697113. Our general fund operating budget is $111,012,612. All funds combined operating budget $158,594,905. Our 5-year CIP is $77,765,060. Our fiscal year 2022 capital budget is at $31,202,682. I'd like to pause here. The CIP, the 5-year CIP is pending a proposed adjustment. Next slide.
Do we have any questions at this time? Okay.
Okay. Our key dates, our next date on September 7th, the second reading to adopt budget and tax rate by ordinance.
I just had a question. Can you repeat the line you said at the beginning about property taxes and what did I hear you correctly that they had not gone up or something? You said something about that.
Yes, so the property taxes reduction it was the first year that our first property tax reduction in 10 years.
Thank you. I think that's an important statement.
Yes. And before we go to the question, I would like to thank, if I may, real quick, the city management office, our different department directors, and obviously our finance department, Ana and Lupe, for their hard work. Now I'm ready for questions.
Do we have any questions from the commission? All right. Thank you, Mr. Garza.
Thank you.
And Ana, thank you. Okay, this is a public hearing. Is there anybody here from the public that wishes to speak on this item? Okay,
Close public hearing, Mayor?
we have a motion to close. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes. Do we have any motions on the item?
Motion to approve?
We have a motion.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion on this? Those in favor? Aye.
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 Those opposed?
Nay.
Commissioner, is that a nay?
That is a nay.
Okay. 6 in favor, 1 against. Motion passes. Thank you.
Public hearing, item 2. Public hearing and action on first reading of ordinance number 2021-1690 to ratify the fiscal year 2022 budget that will raise more total property taxes than last year's budget. Financial Services Department.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor and Commission. My name is Lucianus, Accountant 3 with the Finance Department. I first want to start off leading into this by presenting a recap of the tax year 2021 rate. Next slide, please. Some of the highlights, there was some significant changes affecting our city due to this SB2, the Senate Bill number 2. And some of the highlights I will like to go over is how it affected the city, what it means for the city, and how it affects our community. So SB2 affected the city by limiting our maintenance and growth tax levy growth to 3.5%. It also impacted the way we calculate the debt service tax rate. What this meant for the city is that if the city adopts a tax rate exceeding the voter approval rate, the city must hold an automatic election. On the debt service side, it also limited and impacted the city's ability to issue new debt. And this year the city was facing a decrease in the property tax rate of 2 cents compared to the prior year. And so what the city did, the strategy that we applied was to reduce the amounts reported as contributions from other sources in the debt service rate calculation. And by doing so, the city was able to offset that 2 cent, for the most part, offset that 2 cents debt service rate reduction due to the excess collections. And most importantly, it was able to maintain the financial capacity to invest in the community's infrastructure needs, that being streets, drainage, public safety, and quality of life amenities, et cetera. What this means for the citizens, citizens with a home valued at $100,000 under the current rate, they're of 0.697964. Their taxes were $697.96. Under the proposed rate of 0.697113, their taxes are $697.11. So a decrease of approximately 85 cents compared to the current rate. And next slide. And here we just wanted to show that, just remind the community that the city is just a portion of all the rest of the taxing jurisdictions. We make about 27%. This is based on 2020 tax rates, since the new ones have not been yet adopted. But we don't expect any significant changes from prior year. And then that was just about the recap of last committee meetings presentation. Now the actual public hearing and the ordinance to ratify the property tax increase reflected in the fiscal year 22 budget. Local government code section 102.007 requires that when a budget raising more taxes than the taxes raised in the preceding year's budget is adopted, a vote by the governing body is required to ratify the property tax increase reflected in the budget. This is a vote that is in addition to and separate from the vote to adopt the budget or to set the tax rate. Next slide. So the current year, this year's property tax levy is going to be raising more taxes compared to the prior year, in total by approximately 1.9 million. That would be in the M&O and the general fund, 1.2 million increase compared to prior year, and in the debt service fund, an increase of approximately $700,000. Our recommendation is to ratify the tax revenue increase reflected in the fiscal year 22 budget. And if you have any questions, I'll leave this public hearing. So.
Thank you. Do we have any questions from the commission? Okay. This is a public hearing. Is there anybody here who wishes to speak on this item? Okay, hearing none. Do we have a motion to close public hearing?
So moved.
Motion to close.
We have a motion from Commissioner De Los Santos. Commissioner Gowan, is that a second?
Yes, sir.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay. Do we have any motions on the item?
Move to approve.
We have a motion to approve
Second.
and a second. Any additional discussion? Those in favor?
Aye.
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 Those opposed?
Nay.
Motion passes. Oh, one nay. 6-1, motion passes. Thank you.
Public hearing item 3, public hearing and action on first reading of ordinance number 2021-1691, levying ad valorem taxes for the tax year 2021 for the use and support of the municipal government of the city of Brownsville for the fiscal year 2022, providing for the interest and sinking fund for the fiscal year 2022, City of Brownsville, Texas, General Obligation Funds, Financial Services Department.
So this is the public hearing on an adoption of an ordinance, public hearing and the adoption of an ordinance to approve the 2021 tax rate for fiscal year 22. The Texas Property Tax Code requires any time that the governing body is proposing a tax rate that exceeds the lower of the no new revenue rate or the voter approved rate, for the governing body to hold a public hearing on the proposed tax rate. The current year proposed tax rate is 0.697113 and equals the voter approval rate. This is the rate, the highest rate that the city could adopt without holding an automatic election to approve the rate. That rate is broken up into debt service of 0.255146 or 37%, and to the M&O general fund side of 0.441967 or approximately 63%. The proposed tax rate is higher than the no new revenue rate of 0.669078, but lower than the current rate of 0.697964. That's a reduction in compared to the current rate of 0.000851 cents. Next slide, please. So once the public hearing the property tax code also requires that a motion be made. It has to be verbatim to what is on the screen in the white section. If you have any questions.
Do we have any questions? Okay. Is there any member of the public who wishes to speak on this item? Okay, do I have a motion to close public hearing?
Move.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay, do we have any motions on the item? Can you put that slide back with the language, please?
Sorry, yes, one of the commissioners or someone would have to, again, adopt it by reading that verbatim.
I'll make the motion that the property tax rate be increased by the adoption of a tax rate of 697,113 cents, which is effectively a 4.19% increase in the tax rate.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Those in favor?
Aye.
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 Those opposed?
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Items for individual consideration. Item 1, consideration and action to approve resolution number 2021-061, nominating Keppel Amphels to the office of the Governor, Economic Development and Tourism through the Economic Development Bank for designation as a qualified business and enterprise project under the Texas Enterprise Zone Program under the Texas Enterprise Zone Act, Chapter 2303, Texas Government Code, City Manager's Office.
Good
Mr.
evening, Mayor and Commission.
Mr. Mayor, Commissioners, my name is Gabriel Benavides. I work for TCOT Consulting Firm, and we're representing Keppel Amphels, and we're currently working on a Texas Enterprise Zone application for them. And the last process that we need is for you all's approval, and also two forms to be completed by the city manager. And I'm hoping that Mr. Ramiro Aleman forwarded you those documents to you.
Thank you, Mr. Benavides. I think the person that's going to present on behalf of the city's going to let us know all that. It was in our package, so I think we're pretty well aware of that, but appreciate you jumping in there. Thanks.
Okay. Do y'all need any explanation as?
Yes.
If we do, we'll go ahead and
Good
ask.
evening,
Sir.
Mayor.
Okay. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Benavides. Good evening, Mayor and Commission. The city of Brownsville has received a request from Keppel Amphels and on their inclusion in the enterprise zone designation. The city passed ordinance 2012-1558 on August 28th of 2012, electing to participate in the program. We are allowed to nominate 6 companies and by biennium, and this would be the second company we nominate within those 6 within those years. And this would include sales tax, state sales, and use tax refunds. They have committed to creating over 700 jobs in accordance with the performance agreement signed with the Greater Brownsville Incentive Corporation. And they also plan a capital investment of over $27 million at their Brownsville locations, which includes, as you can see, purchasing equipment and improving infrastructure. The approved application would be for a 5-year term. And once we pass the resolution, incorporated as part of the application, and the city manager would sign the appropriate documents. Next slide, please. It is anticipated, this is just an example of what they can possibly be funded. Of course, that also depends upon how it's calculated by the state. But if the investment, this is a project where they funded between 5 million and over 5 million, allocated 500 jobs, they were able to obtain a maximum allocation of 2,500 per job. Now, this is just an example of the possibility of allocation they can receive. Where city manager's office is in support of the request. And that concludes my presentation. And Mr. Benavides is also here to answer any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Ramirez.
Sorry.
Do we have any, I'm sorry, Commissioner, was that a motion to approve?
Yes, please. Yes.
Okay. We have a motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Those in favor?
Aye.
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 Those opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. Mr. Benavides, thank you so much, sir, for being here. Have a good day.
Item 2, consideration and action to award engineering and construction management work order to Hanson Engineering for Gladys Porter Zoo water and wastewater replacement in an amount not to exceed $741,000 as budgeted in the American Rescue Plan. City Manager's Office.
Mayor, City Commission, I believe I have a couple of slides here for the breakdown. This is a couple of weeks ago, you allocated all the American Rescue Plan funding. And this is the first one out of the gate here as far as on the project side. So the fee breaks down, as you can see here in front of you. 185 for surveying and subsurface utility engineering. This is not necessarily the easiest project. It's complicated when you're replacing an aging utility system at the zoo. Geotechnical is an allowance. It will only be engaged as needed. Engineering and design is 306,000. Bidding services is 15. Construction management is 135, and project management is 50,000, which totals 741,000. The preference, this is kind of an all-inclusive. It takes us from from the start of a project, which is surveying, through the end of the project. And on the next slide is really kind of the timeline that we've set forward with this project. So upon execution of this contract, the work will start, in a couple of weeks in September. The design, engineering design will take us through July of next year, at which point we will go out for bid on the final design documents. And then a contract will be brought to you for the award of that contract sometime around September of next year. And so with about a year and a half construction timeline. So this is well within the ARP timeline of expending funds. And so we ask for your approval tonight. And I will entertain any questions you all might have.
Do we have any questions? And Mr. Gonzalez, this is on the $5.5 million allocation for the zoo, correct?
Yes, so the 5.5 was allocated. So this, you subtract this from the 5.5.
Okay. All right. Any other questions? Do you have any motions?
Move to approve.
We have a motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Those in favor?
Aye.
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 Those opposed? Motion passes. Thank you.
Item 3, consideration and action to approve a memorandum of understanding for a public partnership with Kaboom and the City of Brownsville Parks and Recreation Department for assessment of playscapes and improvements over a 5-year period. Parks and Recreation Department.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor and City Commission. We do have some representatives from Kaboom joining us tonight. And we have Marina Zalesi on the line, but it'll probably be me. And Catherine, I see, and Elizabeth are with us. I'll let them introduce themselves. They are part of our Kaboom team.
Thanks so much, Damaris, and thank you so much to the Commission and Mayor for hearing from us tonight. I'm Catherine Lusk, Senior Director of Programs at Kaboom, and look forward to talking about the proposed partnership this evening.
Hey, I'm Liz O'Kk Von Batten, and I'm the advisor to Kaboom on the Texas Place-Based Equity Initiative.
And then why we're here today and why we are presenting this MOU to you today is to transform older, underused, and under-maintained spaces into first-rate play spaces for children across the city of Brownsville, thereby having a positive impact on our city's youngest residents, their families, and their community as a whole. Next slide. And so this MOU, this partnership is to help us assess conditions, create, plan, engage, and achieve set goals. And so through this MOU, Kaboom and the City of Brownsville Parks and Recreation Department agreed to collaborate on a full assessment of the conditions of the play spaces across all of Brownsville park system. And we'll intend to create at least 2 new play spaces per year over the next 5 years. Kaboom and Brownsville Parks and Recreation will develop a plan for addressing the need for play spaces across the park system, which includes working closely with staff to engage kids, caretakers, community members, and building new play spaces. The locations of these play spaces will be mutually agreed upon by Kaboom and the Brownsville Parks and Recreation Department, taking into consideration key factors, including but not limited to the goal of reducing racial disparities in access to play, accelerating childhood health outcomes, and considering the most urgent need, the resources available, and the interest from the community. And then I'm going to turn it over to Catherine to go over the next slide or two.
Thank you. I want to just share a little bit more about the community build model when Damaris mentioned community engagement as one of the key objectives of this partnership. I want to highlight 2 of the ways that we would engage the community in our play space builds. The first is by inviting both kids and adults who are going to use the play space to help design through both surveys and community meetings, design meetings where we'll ensure that what we bring to our manufacturer is going to result in a place-based design that is impacted by what users have asked for. Again, both kids and adults are a critical part of that process. Also, when we actually build the play space, we'll have the opportunity for community members to participate as volunteers. So the community build allows people to use their own 2 hands to put together the slides and climbers and all kinds of other imaginative play equipment that has been incorporated into the playground design based on feedback from the participatory design process. And for those who aren't able to volunteer based on timing or other factors, there are other ways to participate and support by bringing food or possibly sharing tools or other talents that people have to really try to deepen and broaden the ways that people are engaging with the play space, so that not only do we have a great new place to play, but through the process of building it, we've really connected people to one another and to that place that they've designed and built. Can we go to the next slide, please? And I'll talk a bit about, as the City of Brownsville and Kaboom are each bringing different resources and assets to the table, what is Kaboom as a nonprofit partner to the city really focused on? And I'll highlight not the exact language that's on the slide, but really what are the ways that we can help to make this partnership successful as a nonprofit that's focused on play these last 25 years. And I want to start with initiative oversight. Liz referenced our focus on play space equity, and Damaris talked about there are a number of reasons for that, but we want to see really all the kids in Brownsville, all the families in Brownsville have spaces to play no matter where they live. And we believe that the project management, including construction, logistics oversight, and actually conducting needs assessment are critical assets to bring to the table to make this possible. We also have 25 years of experience in leading community engagement and that participatory design process that I was describing earlier. So that's a key part of facilitating a really engaging process that results in a space that people feel like they belong, they feel welcome because they helped to create the vision for it. Also, we are really focused on what is the volunteer experience? How do we make sure not only that the play space is built safely, but also in a way that engages community members in building and have strong expertise in how to do that. And finally, I'll just lift up other key elements of what we'll bring to the partnership include fundraising, marketing, and communications to help both bring funding resources, be they private dollars, foundation dollars, public funding, even in some instances, bringing those resources to the project and shining a light on the work that we do together. And I think I'll pass it over to Damaris for the next slide.
Thanks. I mean, Kaboom brings so much to our community. They have for several playground builds from Idea Frontier to Praxarive to Montebella, and they really bring a level of professionalism and what we deserve here in Brownsville for our community. And so likewise, we bring something to the table as well as, you know, we'll bring doing some of the nitty gritty needs assessment and feasibility analysis and oversight. But we really want to do is to make sure that we are putting the needs of our community first and that we're engaging and listening to our constituents and making sure that the place is designed for the needs of everybody in our city, and with their fantastic fundraising ability that does benefit the city as well, and help to stretch those dollars. And so we're excited about this and being able to continue to improve our play spaces and our playgrounds. They've needed much work. We've been putting a lot of work in over the years. But so we're excited to continue this oversight and management of our play spaces. And so this does align with our Parks and Recreation Department mission and our inclusion commitment. And our mission of the Parks Department is to directly contribute to the city's quality of life by providing exceptional programs, facilities, parks, and trails while celebrating and preserving the community's natural and cultural heritage. And at the playground, we have a commitment to our community to be accessible and inclusive as possible. We want to provide all sorts of experiences that enables vestibular, proprioceptive, tactile, visual, auditory development. We want them to be inclusive, multi-generational, and accessible to the structure as much as we can. Sometimes we have site logistics that doesn't enable wheelchairs to go on to the structure themselves. So we want to do what we can to the greatest extent, and that might even include like ground level activities wherever we can. We encourage our playground manufacturers to be creative and to help us achieve that goal as well. And we just ultimately believe that play and the outdoors gives children and families opportunities to learn essential skills to flourish in life for their physical, cognitive development, socialization, problem solving, conflict resolution, and so much more. And I'll throw this one back to Catherine.
Yeah, we just want to lift up the opportunities that we're looking forward to if it's possible for this agreement to be approved. We really want to be able to go to prospective supporters of our work and fundraise saying, here's our shared vision, that we have this MOU to help you understand what we're trying to do for kids and community members of all ages in Brownsville to really have vibrant, community-informed, welcoming play spaces for everyone. Come and join us in this. So it's a big boost for how we're able to make the case to funders to come and lock arms with us and do this work together and to put their dollars toward our vision. We also think it's really important, and Damaris spoke to this a little bit, to make sure that the needs assessment is built out using the correct participants, right? So that staff members are able to really get started on the assessment that's going to form the backbone of where are we going to prioritize investment and what's the best path to kind of figure out where to work first, and then what's going to determine our sequence of where we focus.
And then before we pause for any questions or comments, I just want to throw it to Elizabeth, Marina, if we missed anything, if you want to add anything real quick.
No, everything was covered. Thank you, Damaris, and just appreciation with the long-term relationship with Kaboom and the builds and so forth. Thank you. We're here and available to answer any questions.
Does anyone have any questions?
I have a comment, a great compliment to Kaboom. You guys are a wonderful organization. I was fortunate enough to participate in the Praxarive build several years ago. And I wish I could show a picture, but I can't, I don't know how to share my screen. Anyway, it's a wonderful process. I highly recommend the mayor and the commission to participate in the next Kaboom build. It really is fun. And when you're ready for us to try and help you find the volunteers, please be sure and give us some time and send us a flyer so that we can send it out on our social media to our folks.
Yes, we'd be remiss to say it's September 25th, so it's not too far along, and we've got some volunteers, so we'll share that with everybody. And if you want to participate, it's a little bit, we've got some COVID restrictions coming up for September, monitoring that, but everybody is welcome in any way, shape that they can.
Thank you. Any additional questions or comments? All right, I'm looking for a motion.
Motion to approve?
We have a motion to approve and a second. Any discussion? Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Item 4, consideration and action to authorize the city manager to accept a grant under the American Rescue Plan Act of 2021 in the amount of $2,090,720 from the Federal Aviation Administration for the Brownsville South Padre Island International Airport Department.
Good evening, Mayor and City Commissioners. The airport received a grant offer from the Federal Aviation Administration under the American Rescue Plan Act of 2021. First, the purpose of this grant is to provide economic relief to airports around the country affected by COVID-19 pandemic. The airport is recommending approval of the City Commission to authorize the city manager to accept the grant offer in the amount of $2,090,720. I can answer any questions.
All right, do you have
Is
any
this
motion?
grant tied to anything? How do you have to use it? Time frame?
Time frame is typically 3 years. It's tied to offset revenues and expenses that had a direct impact to COVID-19 or the pandemic.
Any additional questions? All right, do we have any motions?
I'll make the motion to approve.
We have a motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Motion passes. Thank you.
Item 5, consideration and action to authorize city manager to extend motor coach bus lease with Valley Transit for an additional 45 days in support of the final phase of the Brownsville South Padre Island International Airport new passenger terminal project not to exceed $133,000, Airport Department.
Good Mayor and City Commissioners. With the ongoing construction of the air carrier ramp and the installation of the passenger boarding bridges, we have been utilizing bus services to facilitate passengers from the terminal to the aircraft for ground loading. With the extension of the project and some of the delays that we've incurred during the project, we're requesting 45 days to extend the agreement with Valley Transit not to exceed $133,000. This should put us at the very end of the project to where we can discontinue the bus operations and start using the passenger boarding bridges. The airport is recommending an extension of 45 days to Valley Transit not to exceed $133,000. The item in front of you, the PowerPoint in front of you is kind of shows a running cost of what the bus operations is costing us from the start of the project to today. And I can answer any questions.
Do we have any questions? Okay, I'm looking for a motion.
Motion to
We have a motion to approve. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion on this? Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Item 6, consideration and action to acknowledge the finance director's financial statements and cash investment report for the city of Brownsville for the third quarter ended June 30th, 2021. Financial Services Department.
Good evening, distinguished members of the City Council, Honorable Mayor Mendez. My name is Gustavo Gross, Accountant 3, representing the Finance Department, administered by the executive team of CFO Carlos Garza and Director Lupe Granado. We'll be presenting the financial statements and cash investment report for the period ending June 30, 2021, otherwise known as fiscal year 2021 Q3. Slide. These are the topics covered and the slides in which they'll appear. Next. Next. All right, the financial highlights. Please excuse, there's a little bit of static in this slide that was going to be deleted. Please exclude the PBUB cash transfer of 7.2 and increase in 45. That one was transferred over to the moderate variances in the yellow section. So as I follow through, we had very successful general fund revenue through fiscal year quarter 3. The general fund increased 2.3 million for the period. Ad valorem taxes increased 3.6 million. Sales tax increased 3.4. Now, the sales tax number, as noted at the bottom in the square in white, was reported before the receipt of 3.5 million, which would bring up the total sales tax revenue to 27.2 million. And that would be a 17.4 increase from prior fiscal year through quarter 3. Some of the other highlights, the Veterans Bridge increased 109,000. The general fund expenses decreased 212 and is pacing with the budget. Other information to note, we had a favorable increase of 735,000 in new residence building permits and a 7.7 million increase in building permits for new commercial properties. The unemployment rate is at 2.2%, which decreased 10% from prior fiscal year to date through quarter 3. Some moderate highlights to point out is the PBUB cash transfers. They decreased moderately by 25,000. Municipal court fines decreased by 288,000. Hotel motel taxes decreased by 119,000. Event center rents decreased by 94,000, and expenses to PBUB utility charges increased 152,000. There are no significant unfavorable variances to mention. Next slide. This is just an illustration of the general fund revenues and expenditures. To the left, you have the revenue budgets. You have for the full fiscal year and how it's pacing fiscal year to date. You have the revenues fiscal year to date and prior year, which are pacing closely. And then same for the expenditures, fiscal year to date and the whole fiscal year. And the actual expenses fiscal year to date are pacing with our budget. Next. Here we have sales tax. They're above last fiscal year's numbers by 16.8%. This is excluding the receipt that we received subsequent to reporting. At that time, with the reported numbers, it's let's see, last fiscal year's numbers by 16.8 or 3.4 million, and we are 34.5 or 6.2 above budget expectation. Next. Here we have the Veterans Bridge. Based on receipts through the end of fiscal year Q3, revenues have increased 6.5% or 109,000 for the same period, and 37.4% or 490,000 above budget projections. Leave that on for a second. Thank you. Here we have the PVUB cash transfers. Actual cash transfers experienced a slight decrease of 0.4 or 25,000 compared to the same period last fiscal year. PVUB utility charges increased 5% or 152K versus the same period last fiscal year. If you can see by it, we'll leave the illustration up. All right, next. All right, general fund summary, next. All right, the general fund unassigned fund balance for fiscal year 20 through fiscal year 2021 Q3. As of fiscal year 2021 Q3, the unassigned fund balance is trending an increase of 6.2 million, of which relates to part of the surplus funding policy statement allocations for deferred maintenance and one-time non-reoccurring expenses. Next. Here we have a general fund revenue comparison between current fiscal year to date, prior fiscal year to date. Some significant points are fees and services. They decreased 18.1%, which of the the total decrease is 1.3 million. It's mostly due to ambulance service fees and run fire protection and youth services. Fines and forfeitures decreased 29.8. That is mostly due to the drop in municipal court fees of 594,000 versus prior fiscal year to date. And furthermore, court fees are less than budgeted by 33.1. Interest income decreased by 66.5. The decrease is mostly due to falling yields, causing a 324,000 unfavorable variance versus prior fiscal year to date. Further, fiscal year 2021 Q3 projected interest income is less than budgeted by 50.6. Intergovernmental increased by 226.2%. The increase is mostly related to coronavirus relief funds, 8.2 million versus prior fiscal year to date of 2 million. Next. General fund expenditures compared to comparison between fiscal year 20 and fiscal year 2021. Some highlights for expenses. The general government, 10.9% increase of 1.4 is mostly related to the marketing, building maintenance, and special projects for civil retire health plans. Public health expenses decreased 56.6%. Of which is 4.8 million, is mostly due to a decrease in overtime hours versus prior fiscal year to date. Sanitation decreased 12.4 of 30,000 is mostly due to a reduction in plastic bag fee and area maintenance ops versus prior fiscal year to date. Culture and recreation decreased, expenses decreased 11.9 of the decrease of 824,000, which is mostly a reduction in labor hours for related public facilities versus prior fiscal year to date. Next. Other funds and revenues and expenses. Next. This is an illustration of other funds and net position fund balances through fiscal year through Q3. I'll leave that up for you to review. We've highlighted anything significant in prior slides. Next. This is basically a distribution of revenue sources for the City of Brownsville Public Transit Fund Summary. I'll leave that for you to review for a second. Next. Here we have our workers' compensation insurance fund. The contributions increased 189,000 and expenses decreased 240,000 versus prior fiscal year. Next. Other information. Here we have a illustration of building permits, some significant total percentage increased by 34.7. New residences and new commercial permits were valued at 37.3 million and 29.7 respectively. Next. Here we have the unemployment rate mentioned before. At the end of fiscal year 2021 Q3 was 10.2%, down 2% from prior fiscal year 2021 Q2. The rate decreased a total of 10% versus fiscal year 2020 Q3 of 11.3%. The Brownsville, Texas investment report. Here we have our investment report. We've noted, we've added to our investment report the total market value of our portfolio, which total value is 93.6 million. And the distribution of value is between interest-bearing demand accounts, certificate of deposits, public funds in investment pools, and bonds. Next. I'll conclude my presentation. Any questions?
Do we have any questions for Mr. Gross? All right, thank you, Gustavo.
Thank you, sir.
This is this is an item to acknowledge. Do we have any motions?
I move to acknowledge.
I motion to.
We have a motion by Commissioner De Los Santos. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Those in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you.
Board appointments. Consideration and action on resolution number 2021-039B to appoint or reappoint 3 members to the Brownsville Border Film Commission, Communications and Marketing Department.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor, City Commission, and community members. My name is Maria Rencho. I'm the Brownsville Border Film Commission Officer, and beside me is Ms. Monica Telem, CBB Manager. We are seeking 2 reappointments. We currently have 2 vacancies. Next slide. As you can see on the screen, we have the applicants listed. I'm here to answer any questions should you all have any.
I'd like to move to appoint Louis Leal.
We have a motion to appoint Louis Leal. Is there a second?
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Motion passes. Commissioner Cowan, I believe you had an appointment as well.
Sure, I'd like to make a motion to appoint Rosie Williams.
Okay, we have a motion to appoint Rosie Williams. Is there a second?
Second.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you.
Item 2, consideration and action to approve resolution number 2021-056A to appoint Tax Increment Reinvestment Board of Directors positions from District 1 and At-Large B Madeira Project, TERS number 4, as provided in ordinance number 2021-1678A, Planning and Redevelopment Department.
Good afternoon, Mayor Commissioners. This is Alan Garces speaking. We just need 2 more appointments, as Ms. Morgan just stated, one from District 1 and one from At-Large B, and I believe that belongs to Ms. Gowan and Commissioner Golonsky.
So I'd like to motion to appoint Daniela Sosa.
Sorry, unless you're reading lips, you heard what I said. We have a motion to approve Daniela Sosa. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you. Commissioner Galosky, do you have an appointment?
I do, but I just want to make sure, this might be different because it's like a TERS, but I was under the impression that the board appointment policy required that we only appoint people with applications on file. So I just want to make sure that it's okay, because I don't think my friend submitted an application yet, but I did confer with her. So.
I seem to recall, Commissioner, I don't know whether council's here, but
That would be a question for them.
right. I do believe that the policy previously, I do remember asking this question previously, and I do believe that the board policy allows for us to appoint individuals that may not have applied so long as they meet qualifications. But I'd like to have Ms. Morgan just verify that with us, or have Council Flores check on that just to verify. But we can go ahead and take your nomination, Commissioner.
I'd like to nominate Linda Maria Marin. So.
Okay, we have a motion to appoint Linda Maria Marin. Is there a second?
Second.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
And I'll just say on this one, Mayor, that when we first started appointing to the TERS, since this was brand new, there were absolutely no applications on file. So all of the first appointees were appointed without an application. So I think Commissioner Galonsky will be fine.
Right, I agree with that as well. We had a motion and a second. Any discussion? Those in favor?
Aye.
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 Those opposed? Motion passes. Thank you.
Item 3, consideration and action to approve resolution number 2021-062 to appoint 4 alternate board member positions to the Brownsville Board of Adjustment, Planning and Redevelopment Department.
So as the commission is aware, the most recent amendment to the Unified Development Code allowed for an appointment of up to 4 alternate board members. Currently, the makeup of the Board of Adjustment is only 7 regular board members. Next slide, please. Here's the current makeup of the board. And as you can see, there are 4 alternate positions available, and here are the applicants.
Can you go back to that previous slide, Alan, please?
Mayor, if I could speak for a moment on this item.
Sure, go ahead.
I'd definitely like to encourage my colleagues to consider representatives from districts 1 and 3 if they're available, considering they have the least representation on this board. I personally would advocate strongly for Dr. Catherine Fletcher, but given who has made appointments to this board thus far, I also encourage my colleagues to yield to yourself, to the at-large commissioners, and to Commissioner Cardenas, who don't have any appointments on this board yet.
Sure. Okay, do we have any, we can go ahead and go to the next slide then. We're looking for 4 alternate board appointments. Do we have any nominations from the commission?
I would nominate Dr. Catherine Fletcher.
Okay, we have a motion to appoint Catherine Fletcher. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Those in favor?
Aye.
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 Those opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. We have 3 more.
I'd like to make a motion to approve Miguel Gaitan.
We have a motion for Miguel Gaitan. Is there a second?
Second.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. Do we have any additional nominations? We are looking for 2 more.
Who made that last nomination? Was that Commissioner Cardenas or Commissioner Cowan?
It was Commissioner Cowan. I don't know anybody on here. I have not looked at the applications. I looked for them. I just couldn't really understand who's who.
And these are just alternates, right? So just in case a member's not available. So, okay.
So can any of us make an appointment, or since I
Yes,
don't
of
want to
course.
make
Go ahead.
another one?
You can make one. You can make one, please. feel free to take my spot.
Sure, Commissioner. Go ahead,
I
Commissioner.
would nominate Marcos Cardoza.
Okay, we have a motion to a nomination for Marcos Cardoza. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Those in favor?
Aye.
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 Those opposed? Okay, motion passes.
Last one.
Commissioner Cowan, do you have anyone you like there?
Sure, I'll appoint Hobie Folis.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor, Commissioners. Enjoy the rest of your evening.
Thanks, you too.
Our next item is executive session, and I'll read the three items. Item 1, closed session pursuant to section 551.074, Texas Government Code, regarding the recent vacancy of the city attorney position and appointment of an interim city attorney, including consultation with attorney to receive confidential legal advice on the matter pursuant to section 551.071, subsection 2 of the Texas Government Code, in which the duty of the attorney to the governmental body under the Texas Disciplinary Rules of Professional Conduct of the State Bar of Texas clearly conflicts with this chapter. City Manager's Office. Item 2, closed session pursuant to section 551.071, subsection 2 of the Texas Government Code to receive advice from legal counsel and pursuant to section 551.087 of the Texas Government Code to deliberate economic development negotiations and financial information received from a business prospect for proposed expansion or relocation in the city of Brownsville, and seek legal advice regarding such projects, incentives, and negotiations related to Project Anchor, City Manager's Office. Item 3, closed session pursuant to section 551.071 Texas Government Code regarding attorney consultation to provide litigation update with respect to state cases involving local government, COVID-19 restrictions, City Attorney's Office.
Do we have any motions to go into executive session?
I'll move that we will go into executive session.
We have a motion. Is there a second? We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? All right, we are in recess to executive session.
It is now 6:29 PM and the City Commission will go into executive session. Okay, we're coming out of executive session at 7:12 PM. And calling, I guess, Mary, you can call us back into regular session.
Yes, I'm calling us back into regular session. Welcome, everybody. Thank you.
And our next item is possible action on any items as discussed in executive session. Item 1, consideration and action, if any, regarding the recent vacancy of the city attorney position and appointment of an interim city attorney, city manager's office.
Thank you. Do we have any motions on this item?
I motion we appoint Victor as our intern city attorney and have a task force for our new appointment of who they might be.
Okay.
Second.
Commissioner Cardenas, just to clarify, you said Victor, you mean Victor Flores?
Yes, Victor Flores.
Okay, and then how would you like that task force to be appointed?
I think you can take care of that. You can get it done.
Okay.
I believe we had interest in 2 and we're missing a 3rd from the commission.
Okay.
And hopefully have 1 or 2 other lawyers on there.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Do we have any additional discussion?
I'd like to move that we separate the motion.
Okay, very
We
good.
vote on the 2 items separately.
Commissioner Cardenas, are you okay with that?
Yeah, it's fine.
Okay, well then, would you amend your motion then just to include the first portion?
I move that we appoint as intern city attorney Victor Flores.
Okay,
Second.
we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Those in favor?
Aye.
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 Those opposed?
Nay.
Okay, we have 1 nay. Motion passes. Then the second part of your motion, Commissioner, was to create a task force that is appointed by the mayor for the selection of a city attorney. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. How many members?
Second.
How many members, Commissioner?
I'd say three commissioners
Okay.
at least. And if we want to add other people, we can add 2 more lawyers or so to get a recommendation.
Okay. We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Was seconded by
Second.
Dr. Gowan.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes. I'm going to just go ahead then and appoint myself, Commissioner De Los Santos, and Commissioner Galansky to that. Lori, we can go ahead and take up the next item.
Okay. Item 2, consideration and action, if any, regarding the provision of incentives for Project Anchor, including but not limited to economic incentive agreements to develop new or expand business enterprises within the city of Brownsville, Texas, City Manager's Office.
I'd like to make a motion to instruct city manager's team to move forward in due diligence regarding Project Anchor.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Those in favor?
Aye.
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 Those opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. I believe that's all the items. The next is adjournment. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Aye.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? All right. Thank you, everybody, for coming. We are adjourned. Have a good night.
Good night, guys.
There being no further business to come before the city commission, upon duly made motion, the meeting adjourns at 7:16 PM. Good evening, everyone.